What's up, guys? Welcome to June 5th as we dive into 1 Kings chapter 11, where it talks about Solomon's many wives. Now, King Solomon loved many foreign women. Besides Pharaoh's daughter, he married women from Moab, Ammon, Edom, Sidon, and from among the Hittites. The Lord had clearly instructed the people of Israel, "You must not marry them because they will turn your hearts to their gods." Yet Solomon insists on loving them anyway. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines. And in fact, they did turn his heart away from the Lord. In Solomon's old age, they turned his heart to worship other gods instead of being completely faithful to the Lord his God, as his father David had been. Solomon worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonians, and Malek, the detestable god of the Ammonites. In this way, Solomon did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He refused to follow the Lord completely, as his father David had done. On the Mount of Olives east of Jerusalem, he even built a pagan shrine for Chemosh, the detestable god of Moab, and another for Malek, the detestable god of the Ammonites. Solomon built such shrines for all his foreign wives to use for burnt incense and sacrificing to their gods. The Lord was very angry with Solomon, for his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. He had warned Solomon specifically about worshiping other gods, but Solomon did not listen to the Lord's command. So now the Lord said to him, "Since you have not kept my covenant and have disobeyed my decrees, I will surely tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your servants. But for the sake of your father David, I will not do this while you are still alive. I will take the kingdom away from your son, and even so I will not take away the entire kingdom. I will let him be king of one tribe, for the sake of my servant David and for the sake of Jerusalem, my chosen city." Solomon's enemies. Then the Lord raised up Hadad, the Edomite, a member of Edom's royal family, to be Solomon's advisory. Years before David had defeated Edom, Joab, his army commander, had stayed to bury one of the Israelite soldiers who had died in the battle. While there, they killed every male in Edom. Joab and the army of Israel had stayed there for 6 months, killing them. But Hadad and a few of his father's royal officials escaped and headed for Egypt. Hadad was just a boy at the time. They set out for Midian and went to Paran, where others joined them. Then they traveled to Egypt and went to Pharaoh, who gave them a home, food, and some land. Pharaoh grew very fond of Hadad, and he gave him his wife's sister in marriage, the sister of Queen Tahpenes. She bore him a son named Ganabath. Tahpenes raised him in Pharaoh's palace among Pharaoh's other sons. When the news reached Hadad in Egypt that David and his commander Joab were both dead, he said to Pharaoh, "Let me return to my own country." "Why?" Pharaoh asked him. What do you like here that makes you want to go home?" "Nothing," he replied. "But even so, please let me return home." God raised up Razan, son of Eliada, as Solomon's advisory. Razan had fled from his master. King Hadadezer of Zobah had become the leader of the gang of rebels. After David conquered Hadadezer, Razan and his men fled to Damascus, where he became king. Razan was Israel's bitter advisory for the rest of Solomon's reign, and he made trouble just as Hadad did. Razan hated Israel intensely and continued to reign in Haram. Jeroboam rebels against Solomon. Another rebel leader was Jeroboam, son of Nadab. Nabat, one of Solomon's own officials. He came from the town of Zaradah in Ephraim, and his mother was Zara, a widow. This is the story behind his rebellion. Solomon was rebuilding the supporting terraces and repairing the walls of the city of his father David. Jeroboam was a very capable young man, and when Solomon saw how industrious he was, he put him in charge of the labor force from the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, the descendants of Joseph. One day, as Jeroboam was leaving Jerusalem, the prophet Ahijah from Shiloh met him along the way. Ahijah was wearing a new cloak. The two of them were alone in a field, and Ahijah took hold of the new cloak he was wearing and tore it into 12 pieces. Then he said to Jeroboam, "Take 10 of these pieces, for this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I am about to tear the kingdom from the hand of Solomon, and I will give 10 of the tribes to you. But I will leave him one tribe for the sake of my servant David, and for the sake of Jerusalem, which I have chosen out of the tribes of Israel. For Solomon has abandoned me and worshipped Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of Moab, Malek, the god of Ammonites. He has not followed my ways and done what is pleasing in my sight. He has not obeyed my decrees and regulations as David his father did. But I will not take the entire kingdom from Solomon at this time for the sake of my servant David, the one whom I chose, who obeyed my commands and decrees. I will keep Solomon as leader for the rest of his life, but I will take the kingdom away from his son and give 10 of the tribes to you. His son will have one tribe, so that the descendants of David, my servant, will continue to reign, shining like a lamp in Jerusalem, the city I have chosen to be the place for my name. And I will place you on the throne of Israel, and you will rule over all that your heart desires. If you listen to what I tell you and follow my ways and do whatever I consider to be right, and if you obey my decrees and commands as my servant David did, then I will always be with you. I will establish an enduring dynasty for you as I did for David, and I will give Israel to you. Because of Solomon's sin, I will punish the descendants of David, though not forever." Solomon tried to kill Jeroboam, but he fled to King Shishak of Egypt and stayed there until Solomon died. Summary of Solomon's reign. The rest of the events in Solomon's reign, including all his deeds and his wisdom, are recorded in book of the Acts of Solomon. Solomon ruled in Jerusalem over all Israel for 40 years. When he died, he was buried in the city of David, named for his father. Then his son Rehoboam became the next king. 2 Chronicles chapter 9, verse 29 to 31. The rest of the events of Solomon's reign, from beginning to end, are recorded in the record of Nathan the prophet and the prophecy of Ahijah from Shiloh, and also the visions of Iddo the seer concerning Jeroboam, son of Nebat. Solomon ruled in Jerusalem over all Israel for 40 years. When he died, he was buried in the city of David, named for his father. Then his son Rehoboam became the next king. Ecclesiastes chapter 1 verse 1. Everything is meaningless. These are the words of the teacher King David's son, who ruled in Jerusalem. Everything is meaningless, says the teacher, completely meaningless. What do people get for all their hard work under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth never changes. The sun rises and the sun sets, then hurries around to rise again. The wind blows south and then turns north. Around and around it goes, blowing in circles. Rivers run into the sea, but the sea is never full. Then the water returns again to the rivers and flows out again to the sea. Everything is wearisome beyond description. No matter how much we see, we are never satisfied. No matter how much we hear, we are not content. History merely repeats itself. It has all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Sometimes people say, here is something new, but actually it is old. Nothing is ever truly new. We don't remember what happened in the past, and in future generations, no one will remember what we are doing now. And so that's the info today. I probably butchered the title of the book. It's Ecclesiastes, days, Ecclesiastes, something like that. But yeah, like I said, like that's the end for today. Solomon made some poor choices, which unfortunately led to God punishing him by tearing the kingdom into half, into two. But yeah, the reason why Solomon's path, one of the main reasons as to why his story came to a sad ending is because of his wives, because of his 700 wives who led him astray, who are not godly wives. And so this is what I was talking about before. It's like how it is really important when you choose somebody to date or choose somebody to marry, that they are very godly people, that they're going to be people that's going to help you draw closer to God, not further away from God. And obviously throughout like the rest of the First Kings from today, it's like it talks about how like God punishes Solomon through his enemies, and how like through like creating rebels, like Jeroboam creating rebels against Solomon. It's like those are the things that's going to happen to people who deliberately disobeys God. And especially when it says how God appeared to Solomon twice. In verse 9, it says the Lord was very angry with Solomon, for his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. And so that's like, I don't know, it's like it shows like how it's like God tried to give Solomon another chance to kind of redeem himself, or like not really redeem himself, but like help him to hopefully turn his heart away from his evil ways. But instead, Solomon did not want to do that because he's obsessed with the woman and with the wives that he has and with the earthly possessions that he has, that he can't see how why he needs God basically to be his life. And then so we kind of get into Ecclesiastes, which talks about how like Solomon basically says how like everything's meaningless under the sun, which means I think maybe another way to say life will under the sun could be a lot of meanings to the term under the sun, but it's like either like on earth or just in this lifetime. It's like everything's like meaningless. How he does not believe in like salvation. He does not believe that people can go to heaven. That he just feels like people just constantly working and going through the same exact thing over and over again. That earth never changes. It just shows you it's like downfall. It's like before he really believes in God, before he really wanted to dedicate his life to God, before he really wanted to gain the wisdom of God, but now he has gained the wisdom of this world. He has become delusional. He has been blinded by the fact that he thinks that life is just meaningless. So it's like, why work so hard if they're not going to be satisfied? But the thing is like, life is meaningful. And not just like life itself, but like the afterlife is also meaningful. That's why Christians should always take life seriously, because it's gonna have an eternal effect in your life, in your soul, forever and things. But yeah, it's a very sad ending for Solomon. It's like a man who's best known for his knowledge, for his wisdom of God, how far he has fallen and stuff. But yeah, that's a lot of it contributes to the earthly things. We let the earthly things in this world draw us away from God, not draw us closer to God. And so when it draws us away from God, then we live this very depressed life. Or maybe not. Maybe some of us are just so satisfied with sin, constantly sinning, constantly living a life that's not of God, that does not bring honor to God, then I think they, in a sense, they kind of make themselves believe that their life is good, when in reality it's not good and stuff. But yeah, it's like, we'll be starting in the book of Ecclesiastes, Estes. So, or like, I'm gonna later kind of learn how to pronounce it, but yeah, it's Solomon had a dark, sad ending to his life, but we all fall. We all fall during our lifetime, but it's all about how we get up. Do we get up by our own strength, or do we get up by the strength of God and stuff? So, I don't have anything else to share, so may you guys go and walk with God today.